Let's go.
Yep, okay.
And so you can follow along. Plus, I'll make the PowerPoint available for anybody that wants it. Plus, the supporting document of a, yeah, Chip is clinking in, I think.
Yeah.
So if you would like the template of a post-level constitution bylaws, that's just bare bones, and you can use that to bounce off your other constitution bylaws, or if you don't have one, you can build it off of that. And my PowerPoint, and with people helping you, you can successfully put together a constitution bylaw. So we'll have all those resources available for you after the presentation, so that if you want to use those, and you'll have the recording of this, you'll have the PowerPoint if you want to sit down with your posts and kind of go through that with your post, and put a team together. That's a good way to do it. I recommend everybody do constitution bylaw creation and revision is a team. So this is the way to use these resources. So we'll get on here in about a minute or so. We got a few folks here. Hey, welcome to Constitution Bylaws. My name is Past Department Commander Robb Smith, and we're going to start the PowerPoint right now, and so people can kind of follow along as I talk through this stuff. So, hope everybody can see the PowerPoint. Get a thumbs up, anybody?
I can.
Okay.
I can.
You're
So
good, Rob.
Constitution Bylaws. My name is Past Department Commander Robb Smith. I'm the chairman of the Constitution Bylaws Committee in the American Legion Department of Colorado. And let's get started. Basically, my opening comments is I'm a 28-year Legion member. Now, you think, how old am I? I'm like 90 years old now. So I actually joined the American Legion back when I was an Army recruiter. I was what Terry likes to say, drinking member only. I wasn't even drinking member only. I grew up in Arvada, so I was a member of the Arvada post, but I was an Army recruiter in Southern Utah. And then the rest of my duty stations, when I retired in 05, in 06, I held my first office at a post level. So that's when I got actually active with the American Legion. But my card says 28 years, and I'm hard-headed U.S. Army First Sergeant. So, but I put that rank away because Pat says, put your Army stripes away, work with civilians now and veterans. So I can't yell at everyone. So we got a couple more people. I've got Anthony and Carl. Good to see you. Got Bettina, Larry. Good to see you. Got some more folks poking in. Michael, good to see you on there. So what I can say about Constitution Bylaws is when your post wants to do a revision because you dug those things out of the safe and blew off the dust and saw this hand typed up. So let me tell you this story. I was asking my post in 06. I need a copy of the Constitution Bylaws, and when I asked the question, because they said, "Do you want to be the sergeant at arms for the post?" And I said, "Sure." Well, I don't know what the hell that is, but I'll do it. So part of the questions I was asking about the supporting documents, I want to learn about the Legion. I just retired from the Army. I say, can I see the governing documents, which I really didn't even know they were called Constitution Bylaws back in the day. Once I finally drug them out, and we drug them out of the safe, I looked at it, and it was this hand typed on paper thin parchment paper of the Constitution Bylaws. That's the only copy they had in place. And I said, good Lord, this I don't know if this is quite up to electronic means or after we make copies of this thing. So basically that began us on the path of revising this document. Because after reading the document, sitting down with some of the people at the post, we were nowhere near on the radar governing ourselves with that document and how we were conducting business on a day-to-day operation. So the two were in a direct conflict of each other because they hadn't been seen for 10, 15 years. They were in the safe, kept safe, but they're never used, so that it's not a functional document where it could help anybody. So when you're writing those resolutions or tackling a revision, because a lot of people already have resolution, or not resolution, but Constitution bylaw. you need to look at that and not be afraid to tackle that. So take it slow with the resolve to do it right. It's not a race. You don't have to try to let's get them done in 3 months or 3 weeks or 3 days. I mean, you take it as long as it's going to take to do the best job you can to get that document correctly. And everybody's going to learn about this process as you go. So leave all the emotions at the door and the arguing, screaming. Everybody resolve to work together as a team at the post level and try to get these documents squared away. And ask for help. And no one's a subject matter expert. I didn't know a damn thing about constitutional bylaws. I actually went out of my way to get other versions that are out there from other posts. And so we had a governing document of how they did business, so we could have something to bounce up against. And we did a lot of back before we got started and really digging into this, looking into what we needed to do to actually revise it. There's other past post commanders that might have done them before. If you see other past department commanders, district commanders, anybody you can find that's willing to help you with this task, because it's a pretty daunting task of a document you don't know really how to put together. Just ask. People will probably lend you a hand. They'll have you do the work, and it's good to have them as a backup to say, "Hey, we're on the right track." Yes, you are, or no, you're not. And somebody might just help if you ask. I've helped out a lot of people do their constitutional bylaws. I've done multiples and help write multiples for other posts that I've started. So by this presentation, you'll be able to know the importance of bylaws and constitution and how they at your post, able to identify the resources available to you to help write those bylaws, constitution, better understand some of the key elements of constitutional bylaws. What do bylaws mean to your post or district? They give you the guidance in conducting your post business. They're that governing document, the glue of these are the rules, so that you're not running amok and just doing things willy-nilly with the rules just because, well, this is the way we've always done it. Well, that's not the way that says that we can do it. It also establishes the structure of your post leadership. That's part of the document too. How those elections take place, who they elect, who they appoint. Those can all be directly put into those constitutional bylaws, and that's how you're going to govern your elections, things like that. It protects the integrity of your post operations. Listen, if you just run rogue at a post and say it's run by a dictatorship and everybody's going to do what the commander says, no, those governing documents tell you how that post has to operate. It protects the assets of your post. If they're doing some unscrupulous things at your post and nobody's calling out on it, and the constitutional bylaw is a direct conflict of that, there could be lawsuits literally that put the assets of your post at risk. It keeps your post in sync with other levels of the Legion, at the district level, department level, at the national level. So it keeps those documents, keeps you in line with the governing bodies and how they have their rules. When was your constitutional bylaws last revised? That's probably a heck of a question. Some people need to think and go, wow, I don't know. Well, you need to know. You need to find that out. Even if you have governing documents, constitutional bylaws, and they've been revised maybe good 5 years ago, maybe it's time to look at them again. At least look at them. Put together a group of 2, 3, 4 folks from the post and sit down and look through each of the points and say, is this the way we're doing business? Maybe we're doing business the way we want to do business, but they're direct conflict with the constitutional bylaws, and we want to make those constitutional bylaws reflect the way we're doing business. It's two ways. Either you conform to your bylaws, constitution, or your constitutional bylaws reflect what you're currently doing. Has there been an issue where your constitutional bylaws has been conflict with that normal practices? That's the question you got to ask. How you vote or conduct meetings are unclear or listen, you can have a lot of arguments saying that's not the way the constitutional bylaws say. Well, maybe it's the way you read it, but it's not the way this guy reads it. So that's where you start butting heads with what do the governing rules say? Maybe they're in there. Maybe that issue is written in those constitutional bylaws, but maybe it's not clear. Maybe you need to sit there and look at those constitutional bylaws and go, nobody understands. There's 18 different interpretations of this element that's in the constitutional bylaws. We need to clarify that. because it's going to be a point of contention with the post. And then everybody's bumping heads. Nobody's working together anymore. How you vote or conduct meetings are unclear or misunderstood. Do we just wing it? No. So here's the thing: if you're governing documents, let's say you're doing business that's completely in conflict with your constitutional bylaws, and there's confusion and dissension within the ranks, you got a brand new member that's now part of your post, and they're coming to their first post meeting, and all they see is an argument session back and forth with people that are part of the post. Are they going to come back to the next post meeting because they see that, listen, this document and how you're doing business, and maybe this is not the venue that I need to be participating in? I would just join the American Legion. I want to help veterans. That's what most veterans say. Yet now they're going to a post meeting where it looks like a fist fight. So that's not what we want. Ask yourself these questions. Has there been times when the Constitution bylaw keeps your post from fully doing what the membership wants? Are they too restrictive? Are they restricted to the point where the post really wants to do this? They want to appoint these other officers, but it says in Constitution bylaws they only have these elected officers and nothing more on there. It doesn't give any wiggle room. We want past post commanders to be on the post executive committee, but the Constitution bylaw doesn't allow them to be part of the EC. That was an issue with our post. I thought it was a valuable asset to have the past post commanders on the executive committee. No vote, but they have a voice because there are some knowledge that we can bring to the executive committee of a post level. But yet they weren't identified on the Constitution bylaws as being on that executive committee. That needed to be a change. That was a good recommendation for a change. Since COVID now, does your post conduct virtual meetings, Zoom, GoToMeetings, etc., alongside of personal attendance? When COVID happened, my post never missed a meeting. We couldn't meet at the Golden Corral anymore, so we just met online with Zoom and GoToMeetings. So we had perfect attendance, just like we didn't miss a hitch. A lot of posts, they just shut down. They locked the doors, said when COVID goes away, we're going to be back in business. My post never stopped, but it didn't allow for us to do voting, conduct meetings, do those kind of things per our Constitution or bylaws. So we need to go in there and change our Constitution bylaws and now how we are doing business that is different. Robert Rules of Order 12th edition has a gigantic section. It's amazing how those smart folks that wrote Robert Rules of Order managed to put in the new Constitution bylaws edition a whole section that talks about virtual meetings and different types of virtual meetings and how that needs to be represented in your Constitution bylaws. It helped out a lot. That edition, if you would read through that slowly, would actually make your posts smarter about how to conduct virtual meetings, because it talks about the different styles and different types and how to document that in your Constitution bylaws. So maybe it also brings up the point that, oh, we didn't even think about doing it this way. Maybe we should change the way we're doing business. Here's another good question. I can't understand the Constitution bylaws at all. I've more than once had conversations with folks at the post meeting. It says, like it's written in Arabic. They have no idea what any of that. It's not in plain speak either. It's written. No offense, Carl. Like a lawyer wrote it, and just veterans trying to conduct a regular meeting can't read the goddamn Constitution bylaws and conduct a meeting satisfactorily. Then it just turns into mass confusion. Then it's time to revise those governing documents, those Constitution bylaws. That's the front line of your documentation. So what's next? A focused team of 3 or 4 seasoned members, if possible. Hey, listen, don't turn anybody away. Listen, you have somebody says, listen, I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about government. I just want to attend the meetings, learn a little more about this. I want then become more seasoned myself. Don't turn anybody away. Heck, if you want to have the whole post in attendance on an off night to sit down and go through the Constitution bylaws, do it. Now, remember, you keep adding extra ingredients to that soup, that can be a little complicated soup. That's my warning to you. If you have the entire attendance of your post, think that they're going to make decisions on this thing, you're going to have a lot more voices to have a lot more arguments about. I think Annette may know a little bit about that when you go into the Constitution bylaws and it turns into world peace. So never needs to get to that point. Everybody needs to go in there. I listen to a podcast every morning. It's a simple podcast. It literally talks about, they take two things like Snickers and Milky Way, and they have an argument. Before they have that argument, try to make their points and everything, and then they have voting by people that's chime in and do voting, and they try to win their argument. By the time it's all said and done, one wins and one loses, and they draw points every 3 or 4 days when they do that podcast. It's on silly stuff in the world. They just find two things that they can argue about and have and try to make their point and argue that point. But before they start that argument slash little battle, they say, debate. Whatever happens, I love you. Whatever happens, I love. They do this little chant before they do it because they're all friends. They don't want to just be mean and hurt each other's feelings. They're there just to do this little task. But whatever happens, I love you. They do this little goofy chant in the beginning because they want to set the tone as we're all doing this for the right reasons. We're all going to have fun at doing this. In the end, I still love you. Even after I lost the damn battle, I didn't lose anything. We had a nice confrontation. In the end, the results will be worth it. You have constitutional bylaws or governing documents. They're going to help you out and control your posts a lot better. But being patient and calm heads will prevail, and breathe and work it out point by point. That's how you do it. You tackle each of the points, and then you get done with the document, and then you let everybody dwell over it for a while and find things that they may not be completely. In the end of the day, let's say you have 5 folks, 3 folks say they want it one way, 2 folks want it the other way. You go the direction of the 3 instead of the 2, but it's the decision of the post. They have to be the ones that pass these constitutional bylaws as their governing documents. So this group, may have the best intention of the world, but the post has got to be the ones that make that vote to accept these constitutional bylaw changes. All right. Items needed to update and create a post level constitutional bylaw. The latest version of your post constitutional bylaw, if available. If you don't have them, you're going to start from scratch. It's going to be a little painful. But sometimes the original constitutional bylaws, when I first got involved with the American Legion, they were so poorly written and out of such mishmash direction and no set A, B, C, D direction that are actually Robb Rules of Order does dictate what goes first, what goes second, what goes third. We almost had to start from scratch. So if you have to start from scratch, start from scratch. Hopefully you're just turning the wrench on the engine. You're not rebuilding the engine. But if you have to rebuild the engine, you rebuild the engine. That's what you got to do.
Hey, Rob, I got a point to that.
Sure.
And I've ran into it both ways. Every post is encouraged to file a copy of their constitution and bylaws with department.
100%.
And then that way they'll have a copy in case something catastrophic happens down at the post and you lose all your records or the commander's computer gets dumped. You'll have a version to fall back on. So a point to all the posts, once you do your work, your legwork and make your constitution and bylaws good, get a copy of those up to department so there's a file copy available for you in the future.
And they'll just file them away. And then somewhere down the road, if you got a question and you say, hey, Pat or whoever's down there at headquarters, I got a question. You've got a copy of constitutional bylaws. I got a copy. Look at it. Does this make sense? Is this written correctly? Does this mean what it says? Then headquarters has a copy that you can actually bounce some questions or concerns over it. And it's good that they have a copy also. Latest version of your district constitutional bylaw and that latest version of your department constitutional bylaw. Now, national is posted to the national website, legion.org. Your district, just ask your district for a copy. They should be able to get you a copy. I'm the author of the last couple generations of District 4 Constitution bylaw. And I'm the author of the American Legion Post 2000, my post Constitution bylaw, and the post that I was before Post 2000 was created. So I keep a lot of those governing documents. Now, I don't hoard those documents. I don't, those source docs either. I give them to other people part of the post. Past post commanders, they've all got copies too. You need as many copies of whatever in everybody's hands. It's good also to give, when somebody new comes to the post, you give them a copy of your governing documents. That's they're now part of your family. You're part of your post. That's their document too. So if they got questions, or when they get a chance, I said, hey, the best place you can put that document, put it on the back of the toilet, on the back toilet seat. And next time you need to do some good reading, bust that thing out and start digging through it. When you find a question or a comment or something doesn't make sense, you just, another fresh set of eyes looking at something might find an error. So yeah, and definitely, Commander, get a copy when you're all said and done with this whole thing. Get a copy down to headquarters, and get it back up to your district too. It's good that they have a copy of your Constitution bylaws.
So Rob, I have a question for you before you move on.
Sure.
So can you tell me where Robert's Rules of Order comes into play? There seems to be differing opinions on post-constitution and bylaws, then Robert's Rules, then district constitution and bylaws. Or, does it go all the way up to the national constitution bylaws? And if you can't find it, then it goes to Robert's Rules. So can you give us a clarifying point on that?
Okay, so your post, we're looking at a post level. Posts should be able to look at their own constitution bylaws, and that's their governing documents. Now, if there's confusion, and they can't solve the problem with their constitution bylaws, they should easily be able to look at, because it doesn't go into every bit of detail on everything possible at the post level. How to conduct a meeting step by step by step. That's not in there. It's in Robert Rules of Order. That should be a sideline document that's used. Robert Rules of Order helps you, assist you in running your post operation, how to run a meeting, things like that, do things that, how to vote correctly. It answers a lot of questions. It's a companion document, a book that's, the more you know more about that, the more it helps you make your constitution bylaws a little stronger, more complete. The two complement each other, but your post constitution bylaws are first. As long as an issue doesn't conflict with district constitution bylaws, department constitution bylaws, and national constitution bylaws. So there's certain things at different levels. A lot of posts have no details on how to expel a member from your post.
Correct.
At the post level, most posts never write that in there. It's governed at the department constitution bylaws.
So since you brought that up, I have something I'd like to discuss, and maybe you can help, or Carl can chime in if you chooses. So if there's a situation where the post wants to remove a member from the post, but not do a trial, so there's not a clear differentiation of whether you bring the person up on charges for the trial, or if you just revert into Robert's Rules of Order of how to remove a person from your post without going to trial.
Robert Rules of Order is not going to tell you how to do that.
Okay.
The Constitution bylaws of the Department of Colorado talks about how to remove somebody. That process, maybe not as clear as it needs to be, but it is governed at the department level. Most posts don't have the detail in there how to do that. It does typically say in there, post membership is governed by their post members. So you may have in your constitution bylaws post level where it says, we vote in at every post meeting a brand new member who signed up for the American Legion as part of the post, and then they'll make us a Joe Smith is fill his paperwork out. He's DD 214 has been verified that he qualified to join the American Legion. Here's this check to pay his dues. I make a motion that we vote him in as part of the post. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. They vote him as part of the post. That's bringing them in. They control that membership, right? Some posts don't even do that. My post doesn't do it at all. If they qualify and everything, the adjutant takes care of it. They're now a new member of the post. Now, to remove them from the post, our post constitution bylaws have no dictate They have nothing written in there to talk about that. District doesn't either. Department does.
But the department, if I remember correctly, department is to hold a trial and bring charges against the person. What
That's
happens
correct.
if you have somebody, you don't want to bring charges against them because you're not trying to expel them from the American Legion overall, but you just want to remove them out of your post due to whatever it is. So it's just
Same thing. So
removing someone.
if are they qualified to join the American Legion?
Yes.
Then they joined your post. That's why they're part of your post. Are they, have they, so that's kind of a sticky situation. You can't just say by the vote of the membership, we're just going to give this guy the boot. You made like a little unofficial contract. They paid their dues for the year. They're not a member of the post for the whole year unless they broke some kind of a rule that dictates that they should be removed from your post.
Right. So
That's in the governing documents of the department.
So in the event, so going to the governing documents of department is to bring them up on charges. But if the post membership chooses not to bring someone up on charges, but they just want to remove them out of the post, they don't want to tarnish their standing or whatever. I mean,
Here's what I would do. Here's
Okay.
what I would do. I would, if that person can't get along with everybody at the post hate that guy, comes to every meeting is a disruption. The post commander can't conduct the meeting and put that person in check, and it becomes an issue. It's part of the commander's responsibility to maintain that person and their conduct in official capacity to post meeting. But if that's not happening, you need to have a conversation with that post commander. He governs that meeting, he or she, and if the consensus is everybody at the post wants this guy gone, you need to have a conversation. There's no official governing body at the post level that says you got to hit the bricks, but we highly encourage you. You're not part of this post anymore. You can transfer to another post, knock yourself out, but we don't want you here. I've seen that before. I've seen it where some people are so disruptive to a post level that it becomes a real issue. They're not going to expel them out of the American Legion at the department level with a big trial. Typically what ends up happening is the commander says, listen, if you can't conduct yourself in accordance with the standards of this post and this post meeting, I'm going to have you removed from this meeting. And if he's blowing a gasket, you call the police and have him removed.
Okay.
Disorderly conduct. I mean, if they can't conduct themselves in a cordial manner for the betterment of the post, why are they coming to the post meeting? Are they just a big pain in the ass? Maybe they are.
Some people are.
If you need to take it to that level, the department, that's what you do.
Okay.
If they're stealing money or whatever, you call the police. Listen, there's a governing authority that says you can't be in our building. If you're acting like a crazy person, it's called the police.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Okay.
That's what I've seen happen before.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Let's get back to this. Some of the items needed to update or create a post-level constitution bylaw. Now, here's what I recommend you do. This is me speaking. There's nothing governing telling you how to do this, but here's, because I've done so many constitution bylaws, helped posts update their constitution bylaws. Here's what I would have you do. Reach out to your fellow posts that are similar to yours. If your post has a bar and it does bar operations and has a manager and all those kind of things, you're one type of post. If your post is like mine, we meet at the Resurrection Fellowship Church and we don't have bar operations. We're a different kind of an animal. Reach out to those posts that are like yours and say, listen, can I get a copy of your constitution bylaws? We're rewriting ours. And can I take it? I need to look at yours. Are they good? You know, they say, yeah, we just redid them. They're in good shape. Okay, can I get a copy? It's going to help me kind of look at an example that's similar to my post, so I can help do my constitution bylaws similar to yours, if it makes sense. And it may be another example of how not to write yours. Their constitution bylaws may be a piece of crap. And you look at there and go, well, that makes absolutely no sense. We are not writing ours like this. Maybe we should go reach out to somebody else that can help us, or a better way to write this. But it may be a good example or maybe a poor example. But see if you can get another of the latest versions of the constitution bylaws from somebody within your district. If you got to reach out even further than that, go ahead and do that. Because I know having a bar, having a manager, having a house committee, having all these, the more complicated you are, the more complicated it needs to be. Maybe you have governing documents that say the Constitution bylaws of the Post, how to run the Post. Maybe you have House or Board of Governors document that governs those operations. That's a whole different document. That's a document that's more legal because you're running a business. So that's another even additional document. Yeah, go ahead. Question.
This is Idri in Denver.
Okay.
Is
You
there
got the
a
fuzzy
template?
background, so your hand was fuzzing in and out.
I was
It's kinda crazy.
raising it to speak.
Okay.
My question is there a template for Constitution and bylaws that says what absolutely has to be in them?
Not what has to be in them, but it's an outline of what more than likely should be in there.
Okay,
And I've got a copy of a template that can be available to you. I just need somebody to reach out to me. I'll send you a template. You can bounce that template off of your current Constitution bylaws, maybe a couple Constitution bylaws from fellow posts, and it'll help you put together your Constitution bylaws a lot easier. So I'll have that available at the end here. I'll tell you how to get it.
I'm a member of the auxiliary, so is there somebody else I had to be reaching out to for that?
Same thing. I know on the web, there are auxiliary Constitution bylaw examples out there that'll help
okay.
you govern. So very, very similar to us, but the different organization. It's the same kind of governing documents. They may have some little criteria that they put specific to the auxiliary that we don't, but it's a governing document that's going to be very, very similar.
Thank you.
Like I said here, bar posts need bar posts. Constitution bylaw is a good example, where other ones don't. You want apples to apples. You want a document that's going to be very similar to yours. It'll help you do yours. Let's jump to the next one. I'm needed to update your or create your post Constitution bylaws. Like I said, Robert Rules of Order 12th edition is the latest and greatest. And I recommend you get the 12th because it has all the governing verbiage in there that talks about conducting virtual post meetings and how to vote electronically. It's got a lot of detail. They put a ton of work in that 12th edition. Now, if you have a 11th edition, it doesn't have that in there. That's the only section they really adjusted and added to it. But if you want to, if you have a copy of 11, don't throw it away. You don't have a copy of 12 yet. It's just not going to talk about a lot of that stuff with electronic voting and conducting virtual meetings, things like that, which COVID pretty much forced us to learn how to do pretty effectively on the fly. Now, there's also some documents. If you go to the bookstore, Robert's Rules of Order in brief, and they've got other similar books out there that basically, in layman's terms, it's Robert Rules of Order on certain situations. It's a good companion book. It's not the Robert Rules of Order, but it's another book that'll help you make things a little more clearer, plain text. So it makes more sense into reading what they say. What the hell does it say? This is confusing me in Robert Rules of Order. What does it say in this in brief version? It's just the bare bones, clear speaking version of it too. It kind of helps out a lot. So if you get that too, you know what? Having all the more tools in your toolbox help you do the job a little easier sometimes. So everything you can get and throw in the old toolbox before you start this task, maybe what you want to do. Okay, what should be covered in that Constitution? That's that first part of the governing document. Now, the following is an outline of the standard information be included in the Constitution. The objective is to draft a document that covers these basic topics in clear and concise manner. You have the title of the document, the preamble. It goes in a sequence of different things in that governing document. You don't need to write this down. If you want to get a copy of my PowerPoint presentation or listen to this again, you'll have that opportunity. So just kind of pay attention to how we're going to talk about these things coming in a certain order. So there's certain things that come in a certain order in the document. Then you get to the preamble. It's a one-paragraph statement of the mission of the organization, tells why you were created. Well, guess what? We have a preamble. Ta-da! And it's changed. So maybe your old Constitution bylaws don't have the verbiage in there of all wars. So that's first thing you got to change, right? So make sure that your preamble is in there. That's one of the first things right on the front of the Constitution of these documents. And if you add that in there with the new version of all wars, guess what? Hey, you just made your first update to your Constitution. Now you're on a roll. That's the first thing you just fixed correctly. So let's keep on rolling with this. The name of your organization, the purpose, membership, organization, the structure of how your organization is, your executive board, things like that. Some of this stuff start talking in place. Your officers, your election and appointments. What officers are elective? What officers are appointed? Those kind of things go into detail. Terms of office, power given over, like the commander. It's got, it usually says a duty description of the commander has these duties. The adjutant has these duties. The senior vice commander is typically the chairman of the membership. They have these duties. It kind of goes in there, and that's the powers that they have. And then the governing rules. Then you get into the meetings. Call of the commander on such and such a night, or such and such, those are those details. Maybe it talks about in this section, your meetings will be both my post, I had to add it in here, virtual and Zoom meetings. We have both. So right behind the commander, we have a big screen, and it has the people that are online, and they can vote, and they can ask questions, and they participate just like their butts were in a seat. And it's awesome. Let me tell you why. Because they don't feel, maybe they can't drive at night. Maybe they can't come to the post meeting. They want to be an active member of the post. They feel excluded because they can't drive to the post meeting and be there. Maybe they got kids they got to watch. Maybe there's a million reasons and facets why that veteran wants to be part of your American Legion post, contribute to the conversation, but they can't come to the meeting. This is where you want to write those details in there about the virtual side, how you vote, how you ask questions, how that all works out, how that information gets out there with the Zoom meeting, from the commander before the meeting. There's not the last minute kind of thing. Then it talks about adoption and ratification, amendments to the Constitution, how you make these changes, how long it takes, how long you do. Let's say you make all the changes, how long the post has got a chance to look at those changes before they approve those changes. The general provisions. That's basically your Constitution. Now I did a 30,000 foot view of Constitution right there. We're going to go into greater detail in a little bit, but that's basically how that's done. That's the Constitution. That's the big governing overall document. That doesn't hardly ever change much. Once those are set, those are pretty locked down. Now bylaws, that's getting a little more deeper in the weeds. That's getting a little more detail in how you proceed. And that's where that goes in there. It must not contradict the provisions in the Constitution. So you can't go in there and say an elective office is these offices, appointed office are these, and then it talks about how you're gonna run the election, and then they contradict each other. Well, then in one whole document, Constitution and bylaws together, you just made a contradiction of yourself. So that you want to make sure that you're not doing that. So make sure you're bouncing these two sections off each other, that one's not contradicting the other, and they're not contradicting how you're doing business at the district level, at the department level, at the national level. You can put greater detail at the post level than you can at district and department and national. National is going to talk about how the national organization runs, department, how the department organization runs, with how district is going to function. District writes Constitution bylaws and how the district officers function as they go around and kind of make the posts do what the post got to do. And the post has to be the governing document about how you're going to run your post operations. And you can be a little more specific. Let's say, just for an example, the American Legion at the national level, they talk about regalia, the wearing the cover. It's in your officer's guide. It talks about your wearing of your hat, right? If the post level wanted to say, and then you put a little, all you Air Force Zoomies want to put a little propeller on the top of your hat because it looks cool, then that you put that in your Constitution bylaws, everybody votes it in, that's the pass. Okay, you're going to get a lot of flack because that's kind of insane, but at the governing level, at the post level, you can put a greater level of detail because of how it applies to your post. That's a strange example, but that's where my point is being made, that a greater level of detail is at the post level. Here's where the meat of the Constitution bylaw reside, and usually they govern actions of that post. Membership, selected requirements, resignation, expulsion, rights and duties. You need to have details on there how your senior vice commander resigns from office, that there's a ascension of office where the junior vice commander takes the job of the senior vice commander, and maybe it shows a vacancy at the junior vice commander and the commander can appoint. Maybe put that level of detail in. But this is the place where you would put it in your bylaws. Dues, how that amount is collected, the procedure and special fees when payable, whatever, how that works, that's your dues. Duties of each office. That's when you go into the detail. In your Constitution bylaws, it says these offices are elected, these offices are appointed. And here it says the duties of said offices. The commander has these duties, and they go into great detail. The executive board, like I said, remember that example I had earlier where I wanted past post commanders to be part of the executive. Well, nothing says they have to be there, but it's good to have them there because then they're an active part of the post. They've already served their time as a post commander. It's good to use that knowledge that they've had, that tribal knowledge that they've acquired, to bring them to the executive board, put a place for them on the executive as maybe a voice but no vote, and let the executive officers make that vote of executive decisions, but make them a voice of reason to be a past post commander, to be able to express, say, listen, there was a few years ago where we had this similar situation come up. This is the way we handled it. It might have been before your time, but this is the way we dealt with it. Maybe that's good knowledge to bring it forth a new executive committee so that they make the right decisions. Then the executive board, how that works. Committees, how all those committees work. Some don't even go into great details. It may just be a one-liner where the post commander creates committees based on who he feels need to be on committees, and identifies a chairman, and that chairman will select who's the members of that said committee. Or maybe it goes into great detail. We have a membership committee. We have a constitution and bylaws committee. We have a post activities committee. Maybe that goes into great detail. That's where all that detail would happen in other committees. Orders of business talks about how we're going to conduct the business of a post meeting from A to Z. You can easily just say governed by the officer's guide in the order that the officer's guide details the agenda of a post meeting. That's good enough. The officer's guide talks about detail. This, you bring the meeting to order, blah, 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 right down the line. And that is all governed by Robert Rules of Order. Now, you don't have to specify Robert Rules of Order, but it's all in that officer's guide. And they got that from Robert Rules of Order. Parliamentary authority. Maybe it talks about that if we can't make a decision at the post level meeting, at the post, a parliamentary authority, Robert Rules of Order, latest edition, will govern our actions when we can't govern them ourselves. What that is a kind of catch-all. If we can't figure out how to manage this situation, because you can't write everything in your constitutional bylaws, then Robert Rules of Order needs to assist you in making that right decision. And if it doesn't, then take it to that next level. Ask districts, say, what do we do here? But try to manage it at the post level. That's your post business. Try to get that done. Amendment procedure, means of proposals, notice requirements, voting requirements. Maybe that goes into some of the details of how you do that voting that are online. So maybe that's where you can put that in there. Other specific policies and procedures unique to your organization, necessary for its operation. That's the catch-all right there. All right. Now you're on the road creating and revising and updating your constitutional bylaws. I have a blank template that I can actually, maybe I can actually bring up. Can you see that?
Yep.
Suggested form for post-constitution, rolled all the way down. You fill in the blanks. It's got a lot of great detail. It's really well written. And then it talks about the executive. It's a lot there. It's actually pretty hefty. It's got some good stuff in it. Then it gets down into your bylaws too. So this is a great starting point for if you don't have anything. It's also a great document to bounce off of what you've got currently. Hey, we really like this templates text. It's clearer, it makes more sense. What we've got in ours is stuttering and stammering and doesn't make the point very clear. Let's adopt what the ones in this template. That's where you go and say, hey, there's a better set of verbiage out here that's going to work. I'll plug that in and we'll go on with the next issue. So use this document, and if it's going to help you better, go ahead and do that. So use that template. Just let me know. So this is the only thing you really need to write down is nobody's seeing it, are they?
I see Saturn.
Ta-da! All right. Use a blank template if you can. If you need that copy, email me. And I'll be more than happy to get you that template. Robb, 2 B's, middle initial D, Smith@gmail.com. If you email me and you want a copy of this PowerPoint presentation or a copy of that template, or just have a question, or just want to shoot the shit, or want to sit and drink a beer with me and talk about your constitutional bylaws, do whatever you want to do. I'm here for you. Listen, I'm not a subject matter expert for constitutional bylaw. I'm here to tell you that. I really am not. I don't know anybody that is a subject matter expert for constitutional bylaw. These are like wrestling a greased pig. You do the best you can. It ain't easy. And you work with it as a group, and you try to do the best you can at the post level. And I've never seen 2 posts make constitutional bylaws look the same. It's a process. Let's just go that way. It takes some work. It takes some commitment. It takes some patience. It takes some help. If you need that help, reach out. If you've got a past post commander at the post, drag them as part of the team. If you've got a past district commander, drag them as part of your team at your post. I don't care if it's part of your post or not. If you've got a past department commander that lives in your district, drag them on board. I helped out with Windsor's constitutional bylaw one time, and they said, listen, we just need you available when we have a sticking point, when our head's about to explode. We need to give you a call. And please help us with the interpretation of what this section's about and what this means, and does it make any sense to you? And I did that a lot. We had lots of conversations. I sat down with them, drank a beer at the end. We went over the governing document. It looked damn good. They were all happy. Their post was happy. Everybody was happy. So we were all ecstatic that that process didn't have any bloodshed, and we got it done in the end. So that's my best recommendation to you, is just to not be afraid, but these documents got to get fixed. So don't be afraid to do it, and do the steps necessary on the front side to put together a team with all the resources and tackle it and figure out a time to do it. And don't consume the post business time to talk about it. Give a quick report, say, hey, we're working on it. We got through about the first opening part of the constitution bylaws. This might take us a little longer than we thought. And then that's my update. And they'll say, continue to march. And you'll just keep working on it until it gets done. Do you need more resources? Do you need something else? Well, we don't have enough copies of the Robert Rules of Order. Maybe the post can buy a couple copies and put one in a couple people's hands and help that assist as an overall effort to assist that group in being a little more functional by giving them some more resources. But it's going to take a while. Are there any questions at this point about the whole presentation and about working on Constitution bylaw? There are no dumb questions. There are only dumb people that are afraid to ask questions.
So Rob, I have a couple of things I'd like to say first.
Sure.
So a few years ago, when we were doing a lot of revitalization in District 6, we actually, in my post in particular, had a set of constitution and bylaws that were 20 years old. And I remember reaching out to Rob for help because there was a lot of confusion about it and people just didn't know exactly what it was saying. And then the other side to that coin, in support of, you know, what you're saying as far as getting people on board that know and understand what constitutional bylaws are about. In 2016, when District 6 separated from out of District 5, we discovered that our constitution and bylaws was a whole bunch of cut and paste from
Hey,
national.
Carl. Carl's leaving. Gotta say bye to Carl.
Bye, Carl.
Bye, everybody.
Smartest man in the
All right.
room, gonna leave. Bye-bye.
Right. Now the attorney's out, you guys can talk.
Yeah, Carl.
But
All
the,
barracks lawyers take over now.
but the really important part was that we discovered our district constitution and bylaws were cut and paste sentences out of the national and department's constitution and bylaws that didn't even apply to the
Nope.
district. So,
Because it's a
you know,
different animal completely.
yeah, so there
Your
was a,
district constitution bylaws got to govern how those district is going to work, how the posts are going to function
right,
as a district level. It doesn't tell you the post what to do. It doesn't really even talk about anything at department or national. It talks about how that district and those district officers essentially, and how those posts that are in that district are going to function together.
yes.
And that's it.
And so that was my introduction to the Constitution and bylaws,
Woo.
you know,
that's
a few
ugly.
years ago. And it's a lot of work, but, and it can be intimidating, but I believe it's one of the most valuable tools that you can have in your toolbox is to know those Constitution and bylaws inside and out.
Yeah.
And especially, like you were saying, being able to separate out the differences between the post bylaws and constitution bylaws and the district constitution and bylaws, and understanding those differences and how they support each other. So,
So as an example, my post constitution bylaws are about 20 pages long. That's average. That's actually kind of small compared to a lot of ones that have bar operations
right.
and they run a business, because then it can go into great detail. And it's a fat document then. And I've helped post with those, and that's a hell of a lot of detail. Then it actually talks about how the post relationship with the House committee and how they're going to communicate together, who's going to be on the House committee. That's a whole, because the House governs the business, not the post, not the operations of American Legion. So that's very complicated. Now, our district commander, Anthony Cook, can attest to this. District 4's constitutional bylaws are probably 6 pages long.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to go into great detail, and here's why. Because it basically has to say, these are district officers, here's how they're going to be elected, here's what they're going to do per their offices, and here's how we want them to go do their job as district officers. Here's how the requirement of the commander and the DEC and how they're going to visit the posts. And it talks about their actions in the bylaws, which is the get or done part of the whole document. This is how we need you to, as district officers, to get out there and do your job and support the district. And it doesn't need to be as complicated, doesn't need to be as big. Now, in retrospect, District 6 constitution bylaws are way more complicated than District 4. You guys have executive committee meetings on a monthly basis. It's a lot of governing of what you guys do collectively as a district of a bunch of posts brought together. Where Districts 4 do not do that, therefore that whole section doesn't exist. Therefore, the whole document is this much smaller. So, and that document in District 4, it works for District 4. It doesn't need to be District 6 constitutional bylaws. And District 6 doesn't have to be District 4. If they work for the district, they work for that entity. And if your post is a simple little post that just meets, doesn't need to go in super great detail, this isn't a great big document. But if your post has a bar and has other operations, I know, let me use a perfect example. Post 32 in Longmont. Their document, I've seen it, it's a bear. And here's why. They have a bar, they have a House committee, they have a governing body there, they have a whole different governing body rules about who's going to be a post commander You got to work your way up in the offices. They have property up in the mountains. They have their own lake that they own, and how that governs the operations of who can use the lake and things like that. They have assets. They need to govern that in a document. They put it in their constitutional bylaw. So it talks about that also. So their constitutional bylaws go, they get big, they get fat, they get detailed, but it needs to be because that post needs to have that level of detail. They're not my post. They need to have that documentation to that level for their post. Any other questions?
Oh, I have one more thing.
You bet.
So when you were talking about the post executive committee, you were saying how the commander is not a voting member. And just to clarify, isn't that because
And I didn't say that, but that is a good point.
The commander is the one who is the tiebreaker. And that's why?
So when you talk about your executive committee, you need to write rules about what the post wants that executive committee to look like and do, and the powers granted to that executive committee.
Mhm.
So you can say the post commander has no vote, he's only a tiebreaker. Or, so you don't notice that a lot of times the post commander never votes.
Mhm.
When you have somebody makes a motion, he manages the business of the post. He needs to be, he or she, I just use that term, I'm not sexist. They need to use the position that they're neutral to whatever it is. They don't want to show bias on one side or the other of the argument or whatever that motion is. That's the way a good post commander should be, because they're just managing the business of the post,
Right.
and they're just going to let the motion go the way the motion is going to go.
So it can go either way. It's
But
just,
Robert Rules of Order doesn't restrict the commander from voting. In fact, unless you specify your commander has a vote, he's one of your elected officers. And in Robert Rules of Order, it actually says they have a vote. They
right.
don't exercise that vote 9 times out of 10. And if you want to write in your constitutional bylaws that they don't have a vote, they're only a tiebreaker, then that's what you do.
So
You
you
guys, the post level needs to put that clarity of what they want that office to do and what their authority is. An executive committee meeting is an executive committee. Grant them the authority that you want them to have. Okay, if you tell the executive body in the executive session there of the post, you do not have the authorization to spend money. If you want to spend money, you got to bring it for the post. You write those in your constitutional bylaw,
Right.
or they'll spend money. Or like my post, we grant authorization to the post commander to have like $300, $500, whatever it is, of their discretionary funds. But at the next meeting, they need to express that to the post that I spent this amount of money for this reason, typically time sensitive. We had a veteran in need. I needed to spend money on administrative supplies because our post adjutant printer caught on fire. He can't print out whatever he needed to do and do his job. So the post bought him a new printer. But just to let you know, I did that a couple days ago, and I just need to somebody make a motion that that's okay. That's always a good thing for a post commander to do, is say, listen, I did this. Is it okay that I did these things? It's your money. It's your power that you grant me by electing me as your commander. Somebody will say, I make a motion that it was okay that you spent the money to buy him a printer. Second the motion, the votes pass or fail. So put those rules and regulations and governing things in there about those levels of the organization. The post, the executive committee are two different animals. You want to make sure that your regular blue cap legionnaire who never goes to executive committee meeting, that they know the rules are written such a way that the executive committee is not going to run the roost. They're not going to make they're not just going to sit out there and govern this post, and they're just going to show up and report when we have a post meeting. That's not how this works. There's a responsibility of an executive committee to get together as officers to have a conversation, to say, listen, long-term planning, they need to look in the future of things that are going up for the post as we reach those milestones 1 month, 3 months, 6 months in the future. They need to be looking with that foresight of those things that are going to come up in front of the post. Then they bring those things back to the post. Hey, listen, we sat down in the executive committee. We talked about the next couple. We got Veterans Day coming up. Then we got Christmas coming up. We want to do some, some outreach to some families that need some food support at Christmas time. So bring those type of things that there was a conversation in the executive committee to the post. Let the post make the action. You're not making the actions as the executive. You're starting the conversation. The post is making the action. The post is spending the money. The posts are making the decisions. That's the power of an organization.
Okay, and one more thing before we move on. Anybody that's on here, I see Bettina's on here and Idri. If somebody wants to send me a blank sample of the Constitution and bylaws on the auxiliary side, then we'll have that uploaded as well with this, with the sample that Rob's providing tonight. So we'll get it up on the website.
I know there's one on the web. I did see it when I was poking around looking for examples of Constitution bylaws. I
Okay.
found ours. Ours was from California. The good example I got, I was like, California's useless for everything that I'm concerned with. They have good Constitution bylaws, right? So I took them, I stripped them, I cleaned them up and said, I'm a plagiarist. We're going to use them because good ideas there's not enough of them in this world. So if they've got a good idea how to do a good example of Constitution bylaws, we're going to look at them and see if they work for
Right.
us. I read through it and it says, that's a damn good document. But I did see auxiliary Constitution bylaw examples that are floating around. So
Okay.
snatch a hold of those and use them as a good gauge to bounce them against your ones you have at your unit.
Okay, well, I think it'd be great if somebody on the auxiliary side would, be willing to take that on and help us out with finding that, because I wouldn't know what I'm looking at. So, I'm on the Legion side of the house, so.
Written in different language.
Yes, exactly. So, but that was it for me. Commander, do you have anything?
I do, just got one point. Be careful. I know you got to write a sufficient amount of detail in your document, but try not to be over prescriptive. You could throw yourself in a bind and not even realize it at the time. So just try and keep it in general terms and allow yourself enough freedom of movement to conduct post business.
So that's the smartest advice I could give. Here's why. If you write in your Constitution bylaws that your post meeting is going to be on the second Monday of every month at 7 p.m. at the Golden Corral. We did that. That could have been easily put in our Constitution bylaws. We didn't put it at the Golden Corral. We put at the location and time prescribed by the post commander. So that's enough detail that it gives you flexibility that if you have to change it. Because when COVID happened, if we just stuck directly to our Constitution bylaw to the letter of the law, we couldn't have conducted business. And it would have restricted us. It would have painted us in such a corner that we couldn't have actually functioned as a post. So we changed some documents. When district met, we had a COVID year. We had to change some Constitution bylaws. I got with Robert Rules of, that's actually before Robert Rules of Order 12 came out. And I was like, good Lord, what the heck are we going to write? So I had to sit down with a couple people and figure out how are we going to write these Constitution bylaws. They're flexible for us to do electronic meetings and voting and attendance and still have all the posts together. That affects your quorum. So when your post meets, how many belly buttons do I got out here? How many officers I got out here? That determines what your quorum is. That's one of the first things you establish is the agenda for a post is, you do a roll call of your officers and you see that you have enough to have a quorum. Well, what if one of your officers can't come to the meeting? You do electronic meetings and he's at home and you can see his little happy face on Zoom. He's attending the post meeting, but he's not a belly button there to do his job. So you need to write the details in there. It says whether they be there in person or virtually, that's how you establish a quorum. So you can't paint yourself in such a corner that it keeps you from doing your business and locks you down so that you can't function. You got to put that little little leeway in there that you write things where you're a little more flexible, where a lot of times you might put in your custom or your bylaws, or at the discretion of the post commander. Hopefully that person's got their head screwed on straight, or they can make a good decision on something that's not super important, but it's important enough that you put that little, you know, this is the intent, or at the discretion of the post commander if you can't meet that. Maybe that's what you do, because it gives them a little leeway in case you can't meet that criteria to the letter of the law. That's what I say to that.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. I appreciate you doing this class tonight. I think it was really important. And you know, if there's one thing I can leave people with, it's question, question, question. And it's okay if people get irritated that you ask questions, but it's important to understand your governing documents for whatever position you're in. You know, some of us have worked our way through and we've had to understand 4 different sets of governing documents. It's okay, because each level just reinforces something else. So, you know, I am the queen of questions. So I really find it to be important that everybody go in and at least take a look at your constitution and bylaws and see if there's anything in there that sticks out to you that causes you to question something, and bring that question forward to somebody that you feel you can trust with giving you a great answer. So with that,
Yeah.
I would just, you know, if there's anything else, does anybody else have any questions? Michael, Larry, Idri, Willard, Keith?
You know, yeah, doing constitution bylaws, you're drinking from a fire hose. So take it slow, put a lot of people on it, and then everybody work together. And like you said, just cooler heads will prevail. You get to it when you get to it. Listen, if you don't get that document done next month or the month after, the world's not going to come to an end. You get it done when you get it done, and you get it done right. Because if you do it properly and you do it right, it's going to withstand the test of time, and you're not going to have to do this damn thing next year or
Right.
2 years down the road. It'll last you a decade. That's a damn good track record for a set of constitution bylaws. If you get a good 10 years out of them.
And when you're facing constitution bylaws that haven't been revised in 10 or 15 years, and the post has gone dormant, but then they're you know, being resurrected or revitalized, it is important to go in there and really just scrutinize them, because not only you're just looking for the little things, but you're bringing them up to date into current times. Like I remember when we were doing the 1976s and the District 6 ones, and Rob was helping me with that. And we actually got the voting by telephone meetings, telephone votes, facsimile, email. We got that all in place before COVID ever hit. So when COVID hit, we were one of the few districts that were able to actually hold a convention, because we had some worst case scenarios in place already. So, you know, again, working with people that have the knowledge and the experience behind them, and Rob's got 28 years behind him in this organization. He might know 1 or 2 things of what he's talking about, just 2, okay. But you know, it's just an important thing to remember that.
My district commander there, taught me everything he knows.
Yeah, well, he's up next, right?
He'll be there someday.
So again,
After
I wanna thank
lobotomy, he will
everybody.
be.
If is there anybody else have anything else? No? Okay. Well,
When the time comes that you're going to do them, or you need to do them, reach out,
yes.
get some more people on board. Listen, if you know there's some smart folks in a post that you're friends with, say, hey, come on over to our post. Can I like plug you in? Is it okay if we plug you into our constitution bylaw revision even now and then, just to gauge us that we're doing this right? Yeah. So I got to tell you,
I'm sorry, let me add to that, Rob. I also think it's really important too, is don't go outside your comfort zone and find 1 or 2 people that do not normally participate in a bunch of
100%.
things, and get somebody who's usually sitting back and very quiet, and just ask them to sit on the committee and let them know, you know, we're just looking for your input, things like that, and help to get them involved in it, because that will become a crucial person within your post or your district or whatever level you're on, because they will then understand the Constitution, bylaws, and why things are written the way they are written.
100%. You know, you can't really have too many smart minds in the room, and but there's always value in finding that person that, you know, just always attends the post meeting, always Johnny on the spot. Say, listen, join this little fiasco and help us get this done, and, you know, be bigger. Maybe by integrating them as a bigger part of the post, by doing a constitution bylaw revision, meets more members of the post, and then they become more active in the post, and then maybe you got a future leader of your post by doing that reach out. And one last thing I want to bring up, so don't be surprised if you see some craziness in your constitution bylaws and see that they're way off the chart. I remember when my wife reached out to me about the constitution bylaws when she was the auxiliary president of post 15, and she said, can you make hide her hair this document? And I said, I started reading, I thought my head was going to explode. It had details in the bylaws about the T set and who the T set was passed down to in the auxiliary. That's super old school stuff. I'm like, do you even know what this friggin' T set is at the Bible? I don't even know what the hell the T set is. So that document was so old that they basically did Tea Party stuff at their auxiliary meetings. That was part of their constitution bylaw. She says, that need to be in there? I says, well, maybe. I have no idea. You need to talk to the old crows in the part of the auxiliary unit and say, listen, does this still need to be in there? Because we're not doing this today. Does this even need to be part of? So reach out to folks that are part of the post from years back and say, I just need some clarity on some things I don't understand. Did we used to do this, or should we be doing this? Or I don't have big questions about this. So you'll see some crazy stuff on those documents. You just want a nice, clean document that helps you do business. If those need, now there is also standing rules, constitution, bylaws, and standing rules. If you just want a set of rules, this is the rules that govern how you act in the dining hall. No using foul language, no pornography, no, you know, I don't know. Maybe you write rules governing a certain area. Those are standing rules. That's not in your constitution bylaws. Those are standing rules as applies to certain instances in certain locations in certain places. And those can be separate documents. They can be referred to in your constitution bylaw, that the standing rules governing the operations of the dining room are these. So go look at them. But you can refer to them, but they're not part of that same thing. So that's a whole nother document. So it's a minor document, but it's a document that may need to be referred to. All right. Well, I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you, Annette.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, folks, for your attendance, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year
to you,
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Ho, ho, ho. All right.
Oh, ho,